Okay. What I have graded is 40 book review projects for honors government in 8 days, which is like a record for me. Okay, so now I've started in on tests. Now they took tests before you did, so I'm grading theirs and then grade yours. Okay, so I would say by middle of the week, which is tomorrow, not late in the week, I should have it done. Okay. I'm going to be gone on Friday. I'm going to a wedding in Columbus, Ohio. Okay, so you guys will have video Friday to watch a movie on the home front. You know what that means? The home front? Home front? What do we got to do on the home front? What? Build stuff. What do we got to build? Planes. What else we got to build? Houses? Weapons. Like what? What's Ford Motor Company going to make? We're going to go from making trucks to making tanks. You understand? So society is going to convert to wartime. Yes? Okay? There's going to be rationing of certain items, like gasoline. Like if you don't have a good reason to be driving, you don't get gasoline. You only get a little bit each month. Shoes, rubber. You know, shoes have rubber in them. Yes? Okay. Tires, coffee, tobacco, silk, meat. It's all rationed by the government. Okay? Like you can only get so much. Butter, all that kind of stuff. Okay? So that's the home front. People planted what were called victory gardens. So they would grow their own food. Okay, so that would relieve pressure to make sure that our troops had food. Does that make sense? Okay, so the whole country is going to be part of the home front. As men went into the military, what did women do? They went into work. They went into the factories. You know who that is? That's Rosie. Rosie the Riveter. Okay. Now you guys know Miss Nielsen. Okay. Now Miss Nielsen is Hispanic. Yes. She married a white dude from Nebraska. Okay. Nielsen. Okay. Like he's as white as you can be. You understand? And she's Mexican, right? Mexican American. Her mom is Connie. Have any of you guys ever met Connie? She's 95 years old. She's a little Mexican woman, about this tall, from Newton. Okay? And when Connie was 17, 18, 19 years old, she would get on a bus every day from Newton to Wichita and work for Boeing, building this plane right here. The B-29 bomber. Okay? This is Nielsen's mom. It's a great story. Now, guys, after the war, these planes all wound up in what were called boneyards out in like New Mexico. They just put the planes out there and they rotted. Okay? So for about 30 years, none of these planes from World War II, these B-29s, were flying. Okay? Connie, Tish's mom, got behind an effort to rebuild one of these and make it airworthy. And they did that in Wichita. Each one of these 4 engines on this plane cost about $100,000 to fix and repair. Okay? And to redo the whole plane and make it airworthy. And she was very instrumental in that. And they did it. They rebuilt one of these bombers, and it's called Doc. You guys seen this flying over Wichita, Doc? Yeah, you'll know it when you see it. It's this long tube looking, okay? It's a weird shaped plane, but it's housed here in Wichita. Okay, it's the only one in the world that flies. Okay? And Rosie the Riveter, those were the women, over 27,000 women in Wichita were working in the aircraft factories. Okay, I had some students a few years ago. I forget their names, but I had two sisters, and they were both tall, skinny girls. Okay, and their grandmother was tall, skinny girl, and she was vital because because of how tall she was and skinny. She was one of the few people that could fit into this one space in the plane when they were building. Okay, so she was like vital to the war effort. If that makes sense. Okay, so guys, that's the home front, and it played a very important role. Okay, so as we move into the post December 7th, post Pearl Harbor, we've got to be able to get supplies across the Brit. Okay, as I told you in the last chapter, 4,600 ships were sunk in the Atlantic. So where there's a will, there's a way. We've got to figure out a way to get these ships across without being sunk by U-boats. Okay? Our mouse. Okay. Now, let me talk about this right here. The end of the beginning. All right. So, December 1941, right? American troops would not see combat for 11 months until November of 42. 11 months will go by because we're not ready to fight the Germans or the Japanese. You understand? We got a lot of work to do. Now, by the end of 1942, we had started to see some progress. Certainly, the British have made some progress. Churchill comes across the Atlantic and he addresses both houses of Congress in Washington. And in that speech, Churchill says this. This is at the end of 1942. He said, "This is not the end. This is not the beginning of the end, but it is perhaps the end of the beginning." And that's where we're going to talk about the end of the beginning. Okay, so we got these wolf packs, these German U-boats, sinking ships. In May of 1942 alone, 120 merchant ships were sunk. That's 4 a day, guys. 4 ships loaded with supplies a day being sunk. 120 in a month. This threatens food and weapon supplies going across the Atlantic. Now again, this is why smart people are important. You got to have them. You got to figure this out. These U-boats are a problem. So we are going to invent something called sound navigation and ranging, otherwise known as sonar. Yes? And this is how it works. So you send out a sound wave, it hits an object and reverberates back. The amount of time it takes for that sound wave to come back is the distance, yes, that the submarine is at from your ship, yes? Now, once you spot one of these, how do you take it out? What? Torpedoes, yes. Okay, now, you're in the ocean, yes? Find a torpedo like a bullet. Tough to be pretty accurate with that, isn't it? Kind of blind. You know what I mean? They have another method. Yeah. Mines were used, but you didn't want to use those like in the middle of the Atlantic because you might run into them. They used what were called depth charges. Now, I know you guys have, you've probably never seen one of these before. Wait a second. You guys are Catholic, right? You've seen one of these. You guys know what a keg of beer looks like? was funny, wasn't it? Set that up, set that up. What's that?
I'd argue Catholic family.
I would agree with that. I never went to a Catholic wedding before until I started teaching at Carroll. Like, dude, this is fun. I need to get invited more weddings. Protestants, they don't know how to have fun like that. Okay? Now, we did at my wedding, but that was in Louisiana too, so it was the South. Okay, it's different. Protestants up here, man, they're like Bible thumpers. Okay? But anyhow, yeah, so anyway, it looks like a big keg of beer, right? It's like a big barrel, and it's filled with explosives. Okay, now you can throw this off the side of a ship, okay, and get it to detonate, blow up at a certain depth. Okay, so if you know generally how deep the submarine is, you can drop these off the side of a destroyer. Okay, now do you have to have a direct hit? You guys have all been swimming in the deep end before, and your ears, you feel the pressure, right? Now we're talking about hundreds of feet, not 10 feet deep, right? And so if you get close enough, the explosion, you can crack the hull of a submarine. When a hull of a submarine gets cracked, what's it got to do? It's got to surface. And a surfaced submarine next to a destroyer is in trouble. Yes? Like this picture here. This is what it looks like. Here's a depth charge. This is what it looks like on the surface after a charge goes off underwater. This guy right here is doing some sub hunting. Okay? They're going to get their target. So they find the sub, start lofting these off the side of the boat, they start sinking, boom, boom, boom. Okay? Sub's in trouble. Yes? Now, we're going to do this in conjunction, sonar from the ships, from radar from the sky. Okay, so this is a flying boat. This one's called a Pegasus, but they also had ones called like the Catalina. And this would allow them to search, especially near coastal areas, but a little bit further out in the ocean. So from the air and from the sea, they're able to find these submarines. Now, these German U-boats, they have to surface from time to time. They have to re-oxygenate. The submarines we have today can circumnavigate the globe underwater and not have to surface. And they're nuclear powered. Okay, we've got some bad, subs now. Okay, these were not quite. I mean, these are destructive. These subs, but yeah. So between these two methods, guys, we are going to destroy 785 U-boats during the war. Okay, most of this will be taking place 1942-43, so that we can open up our supply lines and get troops across the Atlantic in these big convoys. Okay, so you got a big convoy going across the ocean together. You got destroyers out along the perimeter and cruisers looking for subs. And when they find them, they go get them. Okay? So this is a really effective tool of warfare. And this is going to be a big part of winning the war. I want you to remember this. Yeah, go ahead. Yeah, pretty good. Yeah, I mean, they got good at it, for sure. I mean, like 785 of them, man. Very effective. And so, I mean, it made two big things here in World War II, okay? And we've talked about this, guys. Supply lines. You've got to be able to move food, fuel, troops, medicine, all the stuff for a fighting force. If you don't have those supply lines, you don't win. Okay, a lot of people don't think about that. Okay, so that and air superiority in World War II, gaining air superiority was of the utmost importance. Okay, so those two things, if we can achieve both of those, we got a chance to win this war. Okay, so that is now not all wars have those two same things. Okay, air superiority today is not as important as it was back then. All right, I think I got a couple of videos. Let's check this out. Oh, that one's not available. This one. Oh, freaking YouTube, man. I got you. I got you. Yeah, man. Now, if you read down in these comments, they hit like a barge that was underneath the water. That's what you get all this black stuff in there.
They get away from that.
Yeah, you watch it. It's coming at them. Okay. Go away. No. All right. All right. You know what I need to do? We need to have a map quiz. Did I give you guys back your maps? Huh? Okay. Really far away. Sometimes it's the handwriting that's hard to read. Yes. Lily. All right, moving over here. And Gibson. Yeah. Did you do it online?
Yeah, I know.
What did you do, Cooper?
Huh?
Huh?
Oh, I have mine right here.
You never turned it in? Or did I just hand it back to you? Sorry. Anybody else? Okay. Now, Thursday, map quiz. Thursday, 10 countries and 10 states. Okay? Study your maps. Okay, now I'm not going to ask you obscure ones. like Moldova. They'll be generally relevant to World War II, okay? Okay? You guys know what that means? Relevant to World War II? Yeah. No. No capitals. No bodies of water. U.S. states and European countries. Good? All right, we'll see how that goes. All right, now, you guys remember Dunkirk? Remember how the British and the French got their butts kicked up here? Okay, now, we agreed with Churchill that we were going to get involved. Once we got involved, we would deal with Europe first and the Pacific second. Now, as we speak, in 1941, going into 42, the Battle of Stalingrad, remember I showed you a video of that? That is going on out here in Russia. Russia is under siege by the Germans. Okay? What Stalin from Russia wants is us to open a front here in France. Now, guys, this doesn't have England on it, but England is right here, yes? He wants us to attack France. That would relieve pressure off of Russia, yes? But Churchill knows that sending American troops that have never been in combat into the teeth of the German army in France is suicide. And convinces Roosevelt, no, that's a bad idea to go into France in 1942. Follow me? So what Churchill wins the argument. He says, we're going to go down here. We're going to clear the Mediterranean and North Africa of the Germans and the Italians, going after what Churchill referred to as the soft underbelly of the beast. Okay? Hitler is strong here. He's weak here. So let's go there first. Okay? Now, as Germany tries to take Stalingrad and come south into the Middle East, German troops in Libya, this is Italian Libya, okay, are going to start heading this way for this to take the Suez Canal. Guys, this is one of the most important pieces of real estate in the world, the Suez Canal. It's right there by the Middle East, okay, where there's a lot of oil. And it's one of two ways in and out of the Mediterranean Sea that open markets to hundreds of millions of people. Okay? If the Germans can attack here, take the Suez Canal, they control all traffic in and out of the Mediterranean. Who's going to be there to stop them? We're not ready yet. The British will be here in Egypt. Okay? So what we're going to see is a major desert war in Egypt and North Africa between the British and the Germans. Okay? So I'm going to introduce you to the combatants, the leaders of these two armies. For the Africa Corps, for the Germans, let me introduce you to General Erwin Rommel, the Desert Fox. You guys heard of this guy before? Okay. He's one of the best generals of World War II. Now, as military historians would acknowledge, yes.
Set up the beach on D-Day.
He put up a lot of the defenses. Yeah, yeah. And he served under Rundstedt there, but yeah. Rommel was in France doing that. Now, Rommel, shrewd, daring, resourceful. What do I mean by that? So he was a pilot, Rommel was, and he would fly up in Africa above the battlefield, do reconnaissance of where the British were, land his plane, come up with a battle plan, and then conduct it himself from the front, not from the rear. A lot of generals, they'll stay back at the headquarters, send their underlings off to go fight. not Rommel. Rommel's at the front, directing his armies. Okay, this is the kind of guy you want to fight for if you're in the military. Okay, and so Rommel's there's a lot of respect for him in military circles. Just look, I know he's a Nazi. Okay, I'm not trying to praise him as a Nazi. I'm talking about him as a general. And by the way, Rommel was not some Jew-hating, ideological Nazi that was, a cheerleader for the Nazis. He wasn't that guy. He was a soldier. Okay? Kind of like when we talk about Robert E. Lee. You guys know Robert E. Lee, right? Now, he fought on the losing side, on the wrong side. Okay? On the wrong side of history. Okay? But if you listen and read what Robert E. Lee talked about, why he fought for the South, because he was fighting for his country, which was Virginia. He was a Virginian, and that's where his loyalties were to. Okay, now we can tear down his statue. We can tear down Andrew Jackson's statue because of what they stood for and what they did, but we can still learn about their history. Okay, and it doesn't necessarily mean that they were evil people. Okay, just because somebody in 2021 says they are. Most people in 2021 don't read history or understand history, so they're ignorant, if you know what I mean. If we refuse to study these people, we're condemned to repeat it. So please, don't destroy history. Okay, so Rommel's headed this way. Now, the British knew that the Germans were coming because, how many of you guys have heard of this machine here? The Enigma. Okay, a couple of you guys have heard of it. This is the German code machine. All right, look, we have people in the United States that speak German in 1942. You understand? So the Germans aren't just going to be like, hey, let's, we did this when we talked about the Japanese code, right? So this machine is freaking really hard to break. Okay, it's called the Enigma. Okay, there's a really good movie called Imitation Game. Have you guys seen this? Yeah. Okay, and it's about breaking this code machine. All right. I'll show you a video here in a couple minutes about this machine and how it worked. Okay, but there's a guy named Alan Turing in London. Outside of London, there's a place called Bletchley Park. And they tried to find the smartest people they could to break these codes. Okay, well, Alan Turing basically builds the world's first computer to break this code. Okay, it's a pretty amazing story. So we knew generally when the Germans were going to do something. Now, I want you to think about this. If you're playing Maze on Friday night and you got their playbook, right? And every play they run, the defense is there to stop it. Like, you know exactly what they're doing, right? What's Maze going to do? Are they going to scrap the playbook? They figure it out? Huh? Yeah, we got to do something different. Yes? I'm trying to give you an analogy here so you understand. If the Germans know we've broken their code, they're going to scrap it. And I didn't really think about this until I watched this movie. But there were times when the British and the Americans knew that the Germans were about to attack, and they didn't do anything to stop it. So that the Germans wouldn't know that we had broken their code. It would ruin the surprise. You know what I mean? Which means people are going to die because you don't act. That's tough. You know what I mean? That's like leaders have to make those kinds of decisions. All right, but they couldn't give away the secret that we had broken their code. Some, a lot of people don't really think about it, okay? So as I said, Russia wanted us to open a front in France. Instead, we go to North Africa and try and clear the Germans. Now, the Americans, we're going to land here. Casablanca, Oran, and Algiers on November 8th, 1942. So a year and a day, or 11 months and a day after Pearl Harbor. So the British are here, we're going to land here. So eventually, over the next few months, this is going to happen. This is called a pincer movement, where you're coming in on both sides of an enemy and pinching them. Okay? And they will be pinched here in Tunisia. And this is the Battle of North Africa. This is desert warfare, guys, which is very unpleasant. In the daytime in the desert, what's it like? Hot. What's it like at night? It's really cold. And we're talking about tanks and artillery shells going off in the desert. This is not pleasant. It's actually quite brutal, okay? Now, facing Rommel will be this guy, General Bernard Montgomery, aptly known as Monty, okay? There's a lot of Montgomerys in Britain, okay? Call him Monty, all right? Now, Monty is going to attack Rommel here at El Alamein. November 4th, his army breaks through. Hitler receives word that Rommel is in trouble. And I've read books about this, guys. Hitler's like, dude, suck it up. I'm trying to win in Stalingrad. So like any extra tank parts, extra fuel, that sort of thing, reserves, it's all going to Stalingrad. Rommel's on his own. Okay? And Hitler told him that. He's like, dude, you're going to have to deal with this because I'm not helping you. Okay? So that kind of goes to, how long Rommel was able to hold out with what he had. Goes to kind of how good of a general he was. Okay? So these two maps, this one here, the red is the Germans, the blue is the British. So this is November 5th, November 11th, November 15th, November 20th. This is moving fast. Rommel's in retreat. Then it begins to slow down. Okay, so November 20th, December 25th, Christmas, January 19th, February 4th. Okay, so this becomes months rather than days. November 8th, as I said, we're going to land here, here, and here, the Americans. This is the U.S. First Army, the Big One, sometimes referred to as the Big Red One, U.S. First Army. Their commanding officer is General Friedendahl. Okay? When we land in Morocco, Casablanca, on the left over here, there's very little resistance. In fact, the first troops we're going to face, the first enemy we're going to face, are from where? Are they Germans? Are they Italians? No, they're French. First troops we're going to face in North Africa are French. You know what the French are going to do? This is a white flag. They're going to do what the French do. They're going to surrender, like they did at Dien Bien Phu. Yes? 1954. Yeah, they got massacred. Now, yeah, the French don't want to fight us. Okay? Now, at Oran and Algiers, we're going to face French and Italian troops. These Italians are like, damn, man. Now the Americans are in the war. This kind of sucks. The Italians are not long for this war. They're not going to be in it very long. Okay? So it's easy going for these green American troops to start with. And then we start moving over here towards Tunisia, where the British are pushing the Germans back. And then we're going to run into the Germans. That's not going to go well for us. The first major engagement between the United States and Germany in World War II is at the Battle of Kasserine Pass. Tank battle, artillery. The worst defeat of the war for the United States. We will lose over 60 miles. We will retreat. Okay? I'm going to show you a video on that in a couple days. It's like 9 minutes long and it's kick-ass. Okay? Desert warfare. You got a question? Yeah.
Other allies with the French.
The French surrendered. They became puppets of the Germans. Remember Vichy France? So they're like, this is French Morocco. Okay? So the French are there, but the Germans are in charge. So the French are doing what the Germans like puppets. Okay? So French colonials, so you have Africans, Moroccans, that speak French and wear French uniforms too. So does Algeria. And for Libya, which is here, is Italian, controlled by Italy. Yeah. They stayed with, they were what you call Free French. So they stayed with the Allies. Yes. Yeah, and so like, as soon as we get into this, all those French colonials will surrender. Okay? And they will try and join our side. And this is the really tough thing. We got 5 minutes? Let me do the command structure real quick, so you guys understand who's in charge and who's not. Okay. Okay, so Supreme Allied Commander. Okay, now listen. Who are the Allies at this point? 1942. You got the U.S., right? You got Great Britain, yes? The French, yeah. Okay, whatever. Who? Yeah, USSR, okay? But is USSR going to be fighting here or in Europe? Not yet. Oh, no, they're on the Eastern Front. We're on the Western Front, right? So they're in the East. And then the Far East, China. Okay? So really, when we talk about the Allies, we talk about Britain and the United States at this point fighting in this part of the war. Now, along with the British, you get the Canadians, the New Zealanders, the Australians, the South Africans, and India. Yes, all part of the British Empire. Okay? Now, who's going to supply more troops? The British Empire or the United States? We are. Okay? We're going to provide more troops. So who's going to be Supreme Allied Commander? An American. You ever heard of that guy? Who's that? Yeah, he's from Kansas, man. White? Eisenhower. Yes, he would go on to become president. And yes, Goddard Eisenhower School is named after him. Yes? Okay. Now, he's the supreme Allied commander of Allied forces in Europe. Now, Roosevelt could have chosen any general. Eisenhower was not the highest ranking general at the time, but Roosevelt chose Eisenhower because he knew Eisenhower was good with people. Okay, he could help people get along together. All right. Now, because he's trying to get the British and the Americans to get along in this war, he's going to name Monty, okay, Bernard Montgomery, as the commander of Allied expeditionary forces in Europe, which means ground troops. So this guy is USA. This guy is British. Yes? Now, the U.S. First Army and the U.S. Third Army are under the command of who? We got a chain of command here. You got to follow the chain of command. So Marcotte, if you want to talk to me, you got to go through Sanagorski and Holman first. Just kidding. But you know what I'm saying? There's a chain of command. So these American generals have to report to the Brit. And they don't like it. Guys, you know what an ego is? Huh? What kind of ego you got to have to run for president of the United States? You got a freaking big ego to run for president. You know what I mean? You must think pretty highly of yourself. If you're going to be a general, you better think pretty highly of yourself. A lot of our generals are egomaniacs. Let me just throw some names at you. General George S. Patton. General Douglas MacArthur. These guys are egomaniacs. Okay? They want the glory. They don't want to share it with this British guy. You understand? Monty. They hated it. Okay? Now, this is going to cause problems. So like when the French surrendered in North Africa, this causes problems for Eisenhower because he's got to figure out, what do I do with these French people? They're all coming in. Hey, let us fight for you. I'll be the French general. Choose me. He's like, he just wanted the French to go away. So this is going to be a source of problems for Eisenhower. Okay, but it is also going to help us win the war. Okay, as I will get into. All right, so here's Monty. He looks British. Okay. There's Rommel. You see, he's in a convertible. Got all the dust. He's got the goggles. Okay. So I'll finish this battle in North Africa tomorrow. Start studying your maps. Have a good one. That was